Hello and welcome to this month's Glow Heartfulness webinar. I'm Purnima, your host for today's webinar. I'm a heartfulness trainer and a practitioner of heartfulness meditation. Glow stands for Genuine Loving Outstanding Women. And today on the webinar, I welcome Dr. Martin Cornelius and Dr. Martin Cornelius, who are going to speak about pathways to heart health.
Thank you so much, Purnima. It's really nice to be on the Glow webinar with you.
Same here.
Thank you.
So before we actually begin the webinar, let me share a few things about the Heartfulness Institute, who are the host of the Glow webinar. Heartfulness meditation is available in more than 120 countries with thousands of volunteers and certified trainers in different parts of the world. Heartfulness Institute teaches heartfulness meditation and other holistic tools to people all over the world through workshops organized in corporate schools, universities, and local communities. We continuously find unique and interesting ways to bring heartfulness meditation to you, and these Glow webinars are one such initiative. A special and unique feature of heartfulness meditation is meditating in the presence of yogic transmission or pranahuti, which is imparted by the guide. The Glow webinars is specially designed for women, by women, where women can learn to meditate from the comfort of their house, offices, or from the click of a button, as you can see here. So moving on to the webinar, Dr. Martin Cornelius is a retired medical doctor. She's a diabetes specialist, and she's a student of lifestyle medicine who brings a wealth of experience and expertise in wellness. She's worked with the Fiji Ministry of Health for 39 years in the field of diabetes, in the field of public health, information system, health planning, health research, and even non-communicable diseases. She's consulted with the World Health Organization, and she's presented and written various briefs. She's also represented Fiji at the International Diabetes Federation. Wow, that's wonderful and amazing. Welcome, Dr. Margaret Cornelius, once again.
Thank you.
Dr. Marilyn Cornelius, as you have already been introduced with her in past webinars, is also a coach, speaker, facilitator, author, a teacher, providing an integrated science-based approach to holistic wellness. She's the founder and revolutionary at Alchemist Prime, and she holds a doctorate in behavioral sciences from Stanford University. She specializes in cultivating self-love, integrity, confidence, trauma release, and helping clients manifest a career that reflects the true self. So Marilyn, you've been on the show before talking about self-love. Could you give us a little bit of a background on how your work relates to the collaboration with Dr. Martin Cornelius on wellness and heart health?
Yes, Purnima, happy to do that. It's a little bit like a labyrinth where you curve around and meet each other in different parts of your lives. So growing up with Margaret, she is a medical doctor, so we were not allowed to have fried foods. We had very healthy food options, so I grew up with that. But because of childhood trauma, I was abused as a child, and that trauma came up when I was a teenager. And I had also people telling me things about myself that were negative. So my eating habits started to change, and I started to eat a lot of junk food. And then later on in life, I started running and I started to cultivate more positive attitudes. And so I gave up the junk food. And then much later in life, I started to realize that I had these trauma-induced patterns of relationships, both at work and at home and with personal relationships. And I realized that in order to break the pattern, I had to cultivate self-love. So I wrote the book, The Path to Romantic Success, and I teach a class based on this book. And really looking deeply at self-love, I realized that a lot of the behaviors that are inherent in self-love also have to do with diet and lifestyle and exercise that lead to heart health and overall wellness, which is Margaret's work. So it brought me right back into Margaret's field, which is preventive wellness.
Thank you so much. And for the audience, Margaret and Marilyn are mother and daughter duo, so that explains a lot about this webinar. So Margaret, let's start with the basics about what does a healthy heart actually mean?
It's a very good question, Purnima. A healthy heart is not only physically healthy, it should be emotionally healthy as well. So keeping a physically healthy heart, we look at what the heart can do. Normally, it beats around 72 beats per minute. But in some people, it can be a little bit more, and usually in other people, it can be a little bit less. The heart is a muscle, and it also needs to be exercised. So we can do exercises to increase the heart rate. This is what we call the cardio workout. So when we increase the heart rate, the heart learns to work better under a little bit of physical stress or exercise. So how do we know how much to exercise the heart? If we look at a figure that is being proposed, 220 minus your age is the maximum that your heartbeat can go up to for safe exercises. Also, sometimes we say 1.5 times your normal heart rate. So if the normal heart rate is around 70, then we can increase our heart rate to around 120, 25 or something like that. So that keeps the heart healthy. Also, feeding the heart the right types of food or diet, and dealing with stress. We need to deal with stresses, physical and mental stresses, or heart, whatever the emotional stress is, it's where the heart is concerned. So keeping the heart healthy, this is what we mean by keeping the heart healthy.
Thank you so much for that wonderful, amazing answer. My next question to you is, what does self-love and healthy heart have to do with each other?
Purnima, absolutely. So this is a very important question. Self-love is something that we never learn in school or at home. And so when we arrive at this notion that, oh, I need to love myself, the heart has everything to do with that. Because if we don't love ourselves, we will feed ourselves the wrong food. We will not exercise. We will not take care of our stress. And we will, on the opposite, not have good heart health or overall wellness. So for example, we'll set poor boundaries with people who are abusive to us. We will overload ourselves with work, and we will not take the time to take care of ourselves because we don't love ourselves. And so that puts a lot of pressure on the heart. It gives us emotional stress, work stress, the stress of eating fatty foods, not doing enough exercise. And so in general, our wellness becomes very diminished when we don't love ourselves. And that also has an impact on heart health because we're not taking care of ourselves physically or emotionally. And so we become overloaded with stress. We become perhaps anxious or depressed. We become angry because we're not actually taking care of ourselves. We're not giving ourselves the space we need to set better boundaries or the time to be mindful about how we're eating our foods or the time to exercise. And so there's actually a very deep connection between self-love and heart health and overall health.
Thank you so much, Marilyn. So the next question to Margaret is, why does the heart experience poor health, and what are some causes and related symptoms on a medical perspective?
That's a very good question too, Purnima. The heart does experience ill health when we are not looking after it from the point of view of nutrition, exercise, stresses, and many other lifestyle habits. So looking at nutrition, which I think is one of the most important ones, when we take a lot of animal-based foods, that increases the amount of fat in our body. And the fat gets deposited around all the organs, and particularly the heart. So the heart has difficulty in doing its job properly. Also, the fat gets deposited inside the blood vessels, making them thin or narrow and hard. And it is very hard for the heart to pump the blood around the body because the blood is what gives nutrition or nutrients to all the parts of our body. And that is one of the main reasons why physically the heart is compromised when we are not taking enough nutritious meals, and especially high fat or saturated fatty foods. And when we are young, we need to exercise, not only the body, but the heart as well. The heart is a muscle. So it needs to be exercised for it to function properly, to keep the blood vessels supplying nutrients to the heart as well healthy. And also, the heart is the seat of our emotions. So we need to keep the heart healthy by relieving our emotional stresses and other stresses. These are the main reasons why the heart becomes unhealthy. So people ask us, what are the symptoms? The biggest problem with the heart is it doesn't complain much. we don't get the symptoms. By the time we get the symptoms, it's a little too late. Sometimes we may get a little bit of a chest pain and we think, oh, maybe I lifted something heavy or did something, and we really don't take notice. Sometimes we get some pain in the left arm and we think, oh, it's the arm, but it sometimes is a referred pain. Sometimes we feel palpitations when we can actually hear or feel our heartbeat. And we think, oh, maybe I took too much coffee or something, and we don't take notice. But these are very, very vague symptoms, and we find excuses for it, because especially if we are getting a little bit of chest pain on exertion, we go and rest and it goes away and we don't take notice. So we don't get it checked. And then what happens is we get a massive heart attack and the heart is already, it's too late. So how do we know? We as doctors look at all the markers, we call them risk factors, whether we have a family history and what is the age of a person. As we get older, we are more likely to have lifestyle-related diseases, whether we're taking tobacco, drugs, or alcohol and abusing any of the drugs or alcohol. So these are some of the markers, and especially whether we are exercising or not, and we are dealing with our stresses. That's a very, very important issue to remember. So these are some of the reasons why the heart becomes unhealthy, and the symptoms are very vague. So we need to look at other markers to find out if the heart is going, having problems before it starts giving up.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Margaret. My next question is to Madeline. And can you also add to this, or can you point us towards some of the root causes of these examples which Margaret just now shared?
Yes, Purnima, absolutely. So why is it that we would eat such unhealthy foods, fried junk food, or copious amounts of dairy and meat? Or why would we take excessive alcohol or get into drugs and smoking and other addictive types of habits? A lot of times it comes down to childhood and early age trauma. Perhaps we come from a family where we were made to feel that we're not good enough because our sibling was doing better at everything than we were. So there's a low self-worth. Perhaps, as I mentioned, we were abused as a child, and so we have all this pain inside and we're not sure how to dull that pain or how to release that pain. And a lot of times these types of root causes are subconscious, so we're not aware of it consciously. Sometimes if we are old enough when the abuse happened, then we do know that it's there, but sometimes we are not consciously aware of it, but we get into these cycles or patterns with abuse of substances. For example, drugs, recreational drugs, alcohol, and unhealthy foods. And so if we need to really uproot at the root level these types of bad habits, we need to go in and find out what is happening emotionally with us. Are we loving ourselves? Do we have a high self-esteem? Do we have high self-worth? Are we confident in our day-to-day lives, or are we anxious and depressed? Are we angry and resentful? What was our past like? What were our childhood experiences that shaped us? Did we have loving parenting? Did we have abusive family members or siblings or relatives? Or were we bullied in high school, for example? These are all different root causes that can affect how we treat our body and our heart. And of course, as Margaret mentioned, the heart is where our emotions go. So if we haven't released negative and toxic emotions, we will start to feed into that cycle and that pattern of self-abuse with substances like alcohol and tobacco, which are addictive, and foods, highly addictive, hormonally challenged and impaired, high-fat foods that have chemicals and flavors in them to make them more desirable and addictive, including high salt, which creates high blood pressure and other issues for the heart. So again, the trauma issues we face as children are deeply related to the habits that we cultivate consciously or subconsciously as adults.
My next question to Margaret is, can you share a few steps or a few necessary pointers to improve heart health? Or can you also share a few lifestyle changes which we can adopt in our everyday life to make this an easy process?
Thank you, Purnima. Yes, it is very important for us to take steps towards a healthy heart, and not only a healthy heart, a healthy body and a healthy person, mind, body, and spirit. So for the healthy heart and for the healthy body, we need to look at those three important things. There are many lifestyle changes, but the most important ones, like we said, is nutrition, exercise, stress relief. So for nutrition, we need to be more plant-based, avoid animal fats, and also a lot of plant-based foods we also fry a lot. So fried and fatty foods and animal-based products are not good for the heart. So if we change to plant-based foods and eat a healthy diet with lots of fruits and vegetables, grains and legumes, these are good. And also important to realize whether these are chemically treated or not, because we can be eating lots of fruits and vegetables, but these are not organic. It have a lot of chemicals. That's also is not good for our health or our heart. Exercising, general body exercise is also good, because that helps us to relax, that helps us sleep better, that makes us feel better, improves the mood, and also trains the heart as well. So exercises, people think, what can I do? I can't go out and exercise. But if we incorporated these exercises into our daily lives, like taking the stairs instead of the lift, walking, just walking down to the shop instead of jumping into the car and going for your morning papers or bread or whatever to the nearest shop. So we can really incorporate exercises into our lifestyle and be more active and do something inside the house as well while watching TV, I guess. So these are some of the things we can do. And stress relief is so important. Stress relief means listening to good music, or going into the nature, or meditating, being mindful of what we are eating. And also I should mention that, keeping the heart healthy is also controlling any of the lifestyle diseases that we may have. A lot of people these days are having diabetes, high blood pressure, and other problems at a very young age. If we control these well, then our heart will remain healthy as well. Smoking is also very important as part of whatever we put in our mouths. So we put alcohol, drugs, and cigarettes also into our mouth. That's also important. The heart gets affected by these. And to keep a healthy heart and a healthy body, we need to look at what goes into our mouth. And smoking definitely is related to bloodstream diseases or heart diseases and stroke and the rest of it. So being a medical officer, I cannot but mention all these diseases that we are having. And it is so common these days. Younger and younger people are getting lifestyle diseases like diabetes and high blood pressure and stroke and heart diseases, because we start eating unhealthy foods very young in age, very young in life. And we are also drugs and tobacco and alcohol use starts very young these days. So we need to know, parents need to know, children need to know, schools need to also make awareness on this, so that we are not only focusing on the a healthy heart when we are older. We need to focus it right from the time when we are putting things in our mouth: nutrition, alcohol, tobacco, or even breathing secondhand smoke. These are so important. So these are the steps we should be looking at. And also, as we get older, we go for a screen. That's important, because if we have been unhealthy from a younger age, then these diseases will start earlier, or these risk factors will start earlier. And by the time we are in our early 40s, we may be causing a lot of damage to our heart and other organs. However, the good news is that if we change our lifestyle at whatever age, if we change our lifestyle, there is improvement in heart health and general body health. And also helps with sleep and relaxation and everything else. So it's so important to test for control as well, to test for risk factors as well early in life, because a lot of westernized food styles are being used all over the world. People are eating a lot of processed and packaged foods compared to the fresh fruits and vegetables and whatever we used to eat from our backyard or from our farms. And farms are using chemicals as manure, and chemicals for spraying, and chemicals for preserving food. These are issues we also need to look at.
My next question to you, Dr. Marilyn, is, since you're an expert in behavioral sciences, how can someone motivate himself or herself to make these lifestyle changes? How can we incorporate these things in our everyday life when it's not already there?
Yes, Purnima, it can be really difficult. Imagine if I want to give up meat and dairy, but my entire family is completely eating meat and dairy in every meal. It can be really difficult for me to make that change because I won't be supported. And so social support is really important. A lot of dietary factors in particular are very much mired in our traditional habits and in our cultural habits. And so if you just look at the Indian habits, you know, we have ghee, we have milk, we have sugar, we have wheat. A lot of, you know, Diwali is coming and there's a lot of sweets we make. And so these are connected to our religious rituals and belief systems. So it's actually really difficult sometimes to motivate ourselves to shift away from those behaviors. But if we can harness the help of our family members, invite them to help us to be healthy, and in the process, we can help them be healthy also. So it's important to have social support. I teach a lot of workshops on wellness goals, how to set goals and how to overcome barriers. But a lot of times people don't think about setting wellness goals. They go to work, they set goals, they have key deliverables. They do the work, they come home, but they haven't set a goal for how will I eat today? Or how do I want to feel today? How much do I want to sleep today? So I think setting goals is actually very motivating because now you're making your idea more tangible. You're writing it down, you put a time limit on it, set a SMART goal that's measurable and achievable. And that can be really motivating. And then you can share that with your friends, your family members, and try to harness some social pressure to help you achieve that. And so that social pressure and then setting the goal is really important. And then a lot of times I tell people, and this is what I do personally, is for exercise, I will choose something that I really enjoy. For example, I love dancing. So I'll go dancing for 2 hours and I get such a good cardio workout, but I haven't even realized that I went to exercise because I went to have fun. And so making these activities fun, teaching yourself how to make a salad and making it a fun process where each time you make it differently. Experimentation can be fun. And so going out, when I go for a walk in nature, I take pictures of flowers because that's fun and exciting to me. It's inspiring to me. And so I'm actually combining my relaxation method with my exercise method. So it's really important to make your exercise and other healthy habits fun, make it socially inclusive so you can have social support, and also set good goals so that you can slowly achieve and see your progress, because that is also motivating. So there are different ways to motivate ourselves, and that also requires self-love because it helps us if we know ourselves well. And if we haven't loved ourselves, we haven't taken the time to know ourselves very well. So it's very important to understand what motivates us, and then we can harness that.
So let me change gears slightly here and ask my next question to Dr. Margaret. As she's a physician, a trained doctor, an MD, I'm just wondering, how did you get into nutritional training?
Thank you, Purnima. This is an interesting story. When I trained as a diabetologist or diabetes specialist, I had to tell people that the first plan of management for diabetes was to stop taking sugar and sugary foods. How difficult it is, as we said earlier, that our tradition has a lot of sweets in it. And most of the traditions and cultures have a lot of sweets in them or desserts. So it was a very difficult task. But then I got interested and said, what's the use saying it when people are not doing it? So what can we do to make them comply? So we looked at substitutes, like substituting fruits for desserts or any sweets, and trying to avoid sugar in our tea and coffee. It was not easy, but if we put our mind to it, we can do it. So that got me interested in other things, because it was not only sugar with diabetes, it was also heart disease and strokes and other things and cancers. So we looked at nutrition in a holistic way and said, if we keep eating animal-based food products and refined and packaged food, we are never going to get better. So what can we do? How can we change these? And we started giving substitutes. Got so interested and did some research and looked at studies, and then we produced a booklet, a 44-page booklet that looked at food and diabetes. How to encourage people to take portions, how to encourage people to change the the taste of sweetness from sugar to fruits or something different that didn't have a high sugar content, that did not blow their diabetes, into the sky. After that, We also looked at the fat that was coming into our body that caused atherosclerosis. Everybody talks about cholesterol. So we looked at that, and cholesterol comes mainly from animal-based products. So how to cut down on cholesterol, how to take plant-based fatty foods that are, the plant-based fats are good for health. So doing substitutions and learning more about it. And then later, when my daughter went vegetarian, I had a shock, because I was of the opinion as a medical doctor that where does protein come from? We were brainwashed into thinking that protein comes from animal products. So that was a real wake up call for me. And I researched further and found out that yes, plants have protein too. It's just a matter of harnessing it and putting our minds, rewiring the mind to think that yes, we can get protein from plants. And then when she started making very flavorful vegetarian dishes at home, I was convinced that, yeah, people who are vegetarian or vegan are not only eating grass or salads. That was the misconception I had from a very young age. And when I trained as a doctor, that misconception was like proven to me that everyone else thought the same. So I did a lot of research, and I did a lot of looked at a lot of studies, and convinced myself that diet was important and lifestyle changes were also important. However, when I looked at nutrition, one of the main things that controls our lifestyle diseases is nutrition and exercise, of course. But then once you start going plant-based, it helps you feel so good. Even I changed and became plant-based just when I turned after 60 years of age. And I said, well, we can change. If there is motivation, we can change and see the difference. So yes, it's important to look at lifestyle changes, and especially diet. Exercise is not only good for the heart, it's good for the whole body. And stress relief is not only good for the heart, it's good for the whole body. Emotional stress is also something we look at, which of course Dr. Bernardine talked about. And these are the issues that made me look at nutrition related diseases. And we are now looking at a lot more nutrition related diseases which affect the heart as well. For example, anemia. Anemia also makes the heart work extra. So these are issues that I'm really looking at now. And that's what really opened my mind to nutrition. Previously, like you said, the doctors in the mainstream do not get trained in nutrition at all. And now I talk more about nutrition than about sickness.
Your response to my question has opened up very interesting next question, because Marilyn, since you're an expert in behavioral sciences, and you have also gone gluten-free and vegan, as your mother just mentioned, what has made you start Embark on this journey? Because as I understand, you have been a non-vegetarian earlier, and now you changed gears and made these dietary changes for yourself. So what prompted you to do this? Perhaps we could also get inspired listening to your journey.
Thanks, Purnima. I shall hope to inspire, although Margaret's story is mind-blowing, I must admit. So I went vegetarian at the age of 16. It was a mere experiment. I wanted to see what would happen to me. I had read a book about how meat is very sluggish in your gut, and that our teeth and basically our biology is not really, physiology is not geared towards processing meat. So I decided for a week I would be vegetarian. At the end of the week, I felt so good. I had so much energy that I decided I would stick to it for the rest of my life, which created a lot of interesting issues with my mother, of course, as she mentioned. However, I went vegan for completely different reasons. I was in my doctoral research at Stanford, and I discovered my research was focused on how human behavior can be used to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So in my research, I discovered that food-related behaviors could reduce greenhouse gas emissions significantly, especially cutting meat and dairy from the diet. And I realized that we are cutting down rainforests to graze animals, then we are slaughtering the animals, we are processing them, packaging them, refrigerating them, and transporting them around the world to make junk food, i.e. burgers and hot dogs, which are of course killing us with heart disease, but also killing the environment and increasing climate change. So I had an epiphany that if I was going to work on this subject, that I had to go plant-based, because I could not preach something or teach something that I did not do. So I went vegan immediately on the spot for the climate. And then my consciousness realized that I was also unhooking myself from the trauma and abuse of animals, and also removing myself from the destruction of biodiversity in the rainforest, removing myself from the degradation of the land, and removing myself from the process of water scarcity, because there's so much water that needs to be used for the cattle and also for the grain that we grow to feed them. So this was a massive life change for me. And I again noticed that my energy level was so much higher than what it was before. I had so much energy. I felt very clean inside. So I have been a vegan for 8 years and I have been in perfect health. I've had no health issues. Then I became gluten-free again after reading a book about gut health and brain health and the connection between the two. And since I went gluten-free, it's been about 3 to 4 years, I started writing books. And so 15 books later, I realized my brain, its productivity and the clarity that I have now, it comes from my diet. And so those choices I will never go back on. I will never eat gluten, because my productivity, the quality of my thinking, my ability to do more work in less time, be productive, be efficient, and the quality of my thinking, my ability to love more, to be more connected to animals, to the climate, to the environmental predicament that we are in, to love my fellow creatures, all forms of life. This consciousness came to me by going plant-based. And then my own personal productivity skyrocketed when I went gluten-free. So that's my journey, Purnima. What do you have to say about that one?
Thank you so much, Madeline. Thank you so much. I would like to ask you one last question about, can you give us a few recommendations which we can follow to change our lifestyle so that we can have an optimal heart health? Maybe top three, top five recommendations which is going to help us forward.
It is so important. Thank you so much for that question. Yes, the recommendations would be, if we really love our hearts with our heart, then we need to go plant-based, so that we are not eating the trauma as well that comes from the animal foods. Also exercise or be active, be loving. When we exercise, the mood improves and we can relax better, we can sleep better, and we can improve the heart's function. Deal with stresses. We all stress a lot, and then we forget to relieve our stresses. If we are eating, we eat mindfully, so that we don't do stress eating. Because sometimes when we do stress eating, we eat anything and everything. We don't think about what we are eating. So when we relieve our stress, we need to be mindful of what we are doing and eat healthy food, so that we feel healthier inside, not only the heart, but the whole body. Also, we need to exercise to sleep better. Some of us don't sleep much. And even if we sleep, the sleep is not restful. So these are important issues. And then also to relax the mind too, because the mind has an effect on the heart as well. So meditating, being mindful, being able to meditate and relax the mind too, because they say the mind is forever working. We have a monkey brain. It just keeps talking to us and making noises and all that sort of thing. So it keeps talking to us. So to relax our mind, and that also helps us to relax our emotions and our heart. So I think meditation also is very important. And then when we talk about other lifestyle changes, whether we are taking drugs or alcohol or smoking, these are important. Not only doing it ourselves, but being in the presence of people who smoke. So we are not inhaling the secondhand smoke. And when we are choosing our food, whether we are choosing food that are processed and packaged, refined, and also whether we are choosing food that have chemicals. They've been sprayed with insecticides, they've been sprayed with preservatives, or are we using food from the supermarket that has so many different chemicals? My advice would be, my recommendation would be, if you lift a bottle of something in the supermarket and you can't read any of the ingredients, it has chemicals. Avoid that. So the recommendation would be to be very mindful of what we are doing. When we are eating, what are we eating? How much are we eating? And whether we are eating processed foods and chemical-laden foods, or whether we're eating fresh, organic fruits and vegetables. So being mindful of things that we do. and relaxing our minds and our heart for meditation. Like I said, these are important recommendations. Take one at a time and master it. That's what Dr. Marilyn said. You cannot do it all together, or you get overwhelmed with what you have to do. So if you make up your mind that, okay, from today, I'm going to start looking at what I'm eating, and then you make the changes slowly. Say, okay, I'm eating this. This is from the supermarket. And look at the labels and say, oh, this is processed and it's got so much chemicals. One change at a time. So the recommendation would be to make the changes slowly so they are permanent, so we don't go back and start doing whatever we were doing. And our health, and our heart health, our general health, and our general well-being. I love talking about wellness. So our general well-being will improve if we start being mindful of all these. Thank you.
You mentioned about how exercise is very important. Choose the right exercise for the right body type. Go full throttle on it. And you also mentioned about relieving stress. And, choose what helps you relieve your stress. It could be music, it could be meditation, it could be anything. So the top three recommendations would be to help change our lifestyle would be good diet and nutrition, exercise, and a stress-free life. So on that note, I think it would be a nice time to have an experiential session, relaxation and meditation. Close your eyes. Let's begin from the toes. Wiggle your toes. Relax your toes. Relax your feet. Feel an energy rising from Mother Earth and moving up your body to your feet. And this energy, as it rises above, it relaxes your feet, it relaxes your legs. This energy moves up and slowly, gently relaxes your knees, your thighs, and the energy rises upwards and relaxes your hips. Slowly bring your attention to your back, to your lower back and your upper back, and feel the energy rising up and relaxing your lower back and relaxing your upper back. Your whole back is completely relaxed now. Bring your attention to your stomach. Feel this energy relaxing your stomach. It rises up, bringing your awareness to your shoulders, to your chest. Relax your chest and your shoulders. This energy now moves through your arms, both your arms, relaxing your forearms, your elbow. Slowly, gently passing through your arms, relaxing your wrist, your palm, your fingers, your fingertips. As this energy oozes out of your fingertips, feel both your arms completely, gently relaxed. Bring your attention to your neck, the muscles in your neck are softly, slowly relaxing. as this energy rolls through your neck, feel the muscles in your neck melting away. Any tension or aches and stresses in your neck is completely melting away. Your neck is completely soothed. Bring your attention to your head. Relax the individual muscles in your head, your jaws, ears, cheeks, chin, lips, nose, eyes, eyelids, forehead, till the tip of your head. All muscles in your head, all the parts of your head are relaxing. Slowly, gently relaxing. Your whole body is completely, softly, gently relaxed. In this awareness of complete relaxation, bring your attention to the heart. The heart, which is the source of love and light and joy. And let us meditate on the source of light in the heart. And as we meditate on this light in the heart, feel this light pulling you deep inwards. Let us continue to meditate on this light for a few minutes. And if other thoughts interrupt us, gently brush them away and continue to meditate on the light in your heart for a few minutes. Let's meditate together. Gently open your eyes when you are ready. Thanks for joining us today in this relaxation and meditation session. I hope you enjoyed a little bit relaxed you. I hope the meditation was also nice. If you would like to continue this practice, you can write to at heartfulness.org and request for a trainer, or you can also check out heartspots.heartfulness.org and locate the nearest trainer to your residence. You can also visit any of the Heartfulness centers, which is located all over the world in 130 countries. Check out the masterclasses by Daji, which is free of cost and is also available on the heartfulness.org website. About this webinar, if you have any feedback, you can always write to us at glow@heartfulness.org, which is glow at heartfulness.org, heartfulness.org. We look forward to your feedback about this webinar, and if you have any questions for Margaret or Madeline, you're welcome to write to us also. So before we actually end the webinar, any closing thoughts from either Margaret or Madeline?
Margaret, you should.
Well, I just wanted to say that we should not give up on ourselves. And if I can do it at my age and change my lifestyle and be healthy and feel good, you can do it too.
The only thing I would add to that, Purnima, is for everyone watching, don't be afraid to go inside, to go deep inside into the root of your trauma. It is painful, it is the most difficult work, but you also should not be afraid to ask for help. Find a friend who can listen to you or a coach that will guide you, and uproot that trauma and just be your authentic self. And that will be the root of your optimal wellness, including your heart health.
Thank you so much, Madeline. Thank you, Dr. Margaret. It was so amazing to have you both here today with us, and look forward to interacting with the webinars also. And for the viewers, the next webinar is by Dr. Rosalind Pierman in November, and stay tuned. It's going to be so until then, goodbye from all of us.